Hey there guys, and welcome back to another video. In today's video, we're going to see how well the Samsung Galaxy S6 Active holds up in 2021. Alright, so just to give you some specs on the Galaxy S6 Active, it was released back in 2015, released about a month or two after the initial Galaxy S6 family was released, so the S6, the S6 Edge, and the S6 Edge Plus. This was an AT&T exclusive. On AT&T, it came in only the 32 gig variant, and came in three different colors, blue, gray, and white. And I believe I have the blue version here. For the display on the Galaxy S6 Active, we have a 5.1-inch display. It is Super AMOLED at a resolution of 2560 by 1440. Does have a 576 ppi density with a 16:9 aspect ratio and Corning Gorilla Glass 4. So the Galaxy S6 Active originally came with Android Lollipop, Android 5, and ended with Android 7.0, and it is on the June 1st, 2018 security patch. So for the processor in this phone, rather than it being a Snapdragon processor of the time, instead they used a Exynos processor. So it is an Exynos 7420. It's an octa-core processor. We do have 3 gigs of RAM in this. Now the storage is 32 gigs. That is not upgradable. So there's no micro SD slot on this one. That was brought back for the Galaxy S7. It is UFS 2.0 storage, however, so it's pretty speedy. Now, for our cameras on this phone, we do have just 2. So on the front, we have a 5 megapixel camera with an f1.9 aperture. It does do 1080p video at 30 frames per second. On the rear for the camera, we have a 16 megapixel sensor, and that has an f1.9 aperture. We do have an LED flash, and this can do video at 4K at 30 frames per second. For connectivity, of course, this is a GSM phone running on AT&T, so it ran with LTE. For Wi-Fi, 802.11a, B, G, N, and AC, dual band, Wi-Fi direct, and Bluetooth 4.1. And we do have micro USB for charging. For the battery in this phone, it is a 3500 milliamp hour battery. You can use fast charging with this up to 15 watts, and it does offer fast wireless charging also up to 7.5 watts. And of course, this being the active model, this one is rated IP68 for dust and water resistance. Of course, water up to 1.5 meters for 30 minutes. And military standard 810G, compliant for salt, dust, humidity, rain, vibration, solar radiation, transport, and thermal shock resistance. So this one is a beast. Now taking a look at the design of the Galaxy S6 Active, you can see we have definitely a ruggedized version. We do have a flat display, while some of the other ones did have curved displays, and we do have that beautiful 5.1-inch AMOLED display. Taking a look at the top, you can see we have a couple of sensors. We have 1, 2, 3, our camera, Samsung branding, and the silver earpiece. If you look really close, you might be able to see the dot pattern in the top as well as the bottom. Now taking a look at the bottom, you can see we have 3 hardware buttons rather than any software or capacitive keys. And so we have our home key, a back key, and a multitasking button. Now comparing this to the S6, the Edge, and the Edge Plus, those had a home button that was a physical button, but it had a fingerprint scanner inside of that button, and then they had capacitive keys for the multitasking and the back key. Now one thing that's missing here is this one does not have the fingerprint scanner. Unfortunately, the S6 Active did not get that. Now they did actually get it into the the S7 Active, but the S6 Active did not get that, unfortunately. So there is no fingerprint scanner on this phone whatsoever, not on the back, not on the front at all. So you had to use pin or pattern with this one only. Now, this is a pretty boxy design, but it is boxy for a reason because it is meant to be tough. Now, as you can see, mine didn't really fare so well. It does have a large crack in it, but as you can see, it still works perfectly fine, so the screen has no issues whatsoever. There's no line or anything like that. Taking a look at the side of the phone, you can see it is a boxy design, but still pretty thin. And on the top and bottom, both corners are jutted out just a little bit, so it does have some corner protection if you do happen to drop the phone. Taking a look at the button placement, you can see we have this little blue button, and it does have a little bit of grip on it, as well as the volume keys. This is for the activity zone, which is a special feature for the Active series. We do have little ridges for grip on the side. Looking at the bottom, we have those ridges on the bottom also with our micro USB for charging, as well as a microphone. On the side, we have our power key that also has some ridges on it, so it does have a little pattern. You can feel it in your pocket, ridging going down the edge. And then we have this right here, which is our SIM card, and you basically can just use your finger to take this slot out, put your SIM card in, and put it back. And that should be watertight, hopefully. Now, taking a look at the back, you can see we have little metal rivets in the top and bottom, which is just a pretty interesting design. And then we have this kind of rubberized texture with this camo look on the back. Now, of course, it depends on the color you get, but it will look a little bit different. So it's kind of like a digital camo. It looks pretty nice. So we have our 16 megapixel camera, and as you can see, no camera bump, nothing crazy there. We have our LED flash, and this also, I believe, is for detecting your heart rate through your finger. And then we have AT&T branding, and then Galaxy S6 active branding. And then you can see we have the single rear speaker, and I hate this so much because if it's, you know, covered or sitting on a table, it'll be muffled and just will not sound good. But I do really like this camo look on the back of the S6 Active, and I think it just kind of adds a little bit of flair. So it's not glass or anything, but it does have this rubberized texture, and you do get wireless charging with this phone, which is nice. So this did originally come with Android 5 Lollipop and ended up with Android 7, and it is running TouchWiz on top, so it is pretty typical Samsung of the time. Now, as you can see, we get these squared off icons. Everything is pretty large. We have a pretty simple menu going through the apps. A couple AT&T included apps, of course, no surprise there. So that's a couple of the apps they included. Of course, they included Wild Tangent Games, Drive Mode, and some other garbage that you don't need. But the unique feature that I definitely did want to show you is this Activity Zone. So you just tap this button, and you get this Activity Zone app, which is pretty interesting. So you get the weather, you do have a barometer, you have the S Health app, so you can integrate that into this. You have a compass, which is live, so as you can see, it will move as I move. You also have a flashlight, so you can turn that on. And you have different speeds, so you turn it on. You have brightness of it, so you can turn the brightness down or up. You have blinking speed, so if you decide to do SOS or something like that, if you're stuck somewhere, that's a pretty nice feature. We have a stopwatch built in, and I believe that's about it. So it's pretty cool. Now you do have some settings here. So we have our active key setting. So a short press will take you to Activity Zone, a long press will take you to Samsung Music, and it looks like you can actually select the shortcut. So you can actually select it from a bunch of different apps and different places in the phone, so that's pretty nice. And you can also select it to activate while the screen is locked if you want to also. So a pretty cool feature. Now, of course, this is a 6-year-old phone, so performance is not going to be great, but it is still a flagship phone from 6 years ago, so it's not terrible, I'd say. So we have a 198 single-core score on Geekbench 5, an 865 multi-core score. Now, this I definitely wouldn't recommend to use as a daily driver, but, you know, as a backup phone or something like that, it's not bad, and you can see performance is still okay. It's not great, and it is also running an older version of Android, so it's not going to be super amazing performance, but it would definitely do the job. Just to do a quick social media test on the Galaxy S6 Active, you'd be surprised that these apps still work, so that's pretty impressive. So we are going to go for Twitter first. As you can see, that loads up pretty quickly. Now you can definitely see stuttering as you're scrolling, and images take a little bit of time to load, but overall it's still pretty usable. We can check out fleets. And they seem pretty smooth overall, a little bit of stutter. Opening up a new tweet. Go to the search tab. Next we'll try Instagram. As you can see, it does take a little bit of time to open up, but scrolling is okay. If we go to the camera, definitely feel that lag. Trying to go to the other camera. It is definitely not a good experience. Just trying to go between cameras, you can see it's just the stutter is just not very good. But scrolling is okay. And next we'll try out TikTok. Now the last time I tried this, it did not work very well. Alright, so the video actually came up this time. But what I noticed last time is that the video wasn't actually playing, so I'm surprised it's playing this time, so that's pretty cool. But as you can see, it's not too bad, but it's not great. So the experience might not be very good on this phone. But again, like for a 6-year-old phone and it still works decently well, I'm pretty impressed. All right, so now to test the speaker on the Galaxy S6 Active. Now it is a backfiring speaker, so it's not going out here, it's not coming up here, there's no stereo setup or anything like that, so it's not gonna sound super great. It is fairly loud, but a little bit tinny, so I'll just go ahead and give you a listen. Being this is a Samsung phone, it does have a beautiful display. This is a 1440p AMOLED display, and in the settings we do have a couple different screen modes, so you get a little sample photo, and you can choose adaptive display, which will change the screen mode based on what you're looking at. You have AMOLED Cinema, you have AMOLED Photo, and you have Basic, so you can choose between one of those to pick whichever works best for you. All right, and here is a look at the display with the adaptive screen mode. So of course, it is a gorgeous display, 1440p, and you can actually look at YouTube videos in 1440p if it is available. So this is a 4K video downscale to 1440p, but you can definitely see the colors are vibrant, they pop, beautiful contrast level, and deep dark blacks because it's an AMOLED display. So it's an absolutely beautiful display even 6 years on. So yeah, you know, of course it's a little bit small by today's standards, but definitely still a beautiful, beautiful display on this phone. So on the front we have a 5 megapixel camera, and that one is capable of doing 1440p video recording. On the rear we have a 16 megapixel camera, and that one is capable of doing 4K video recording at 30 frames per second. And now I'll go ahead and show you a couple of pictures and clips from the Samsung Galaxy S6 Active. Here's a quick sample video from the Galaxy S6 Active's rear camera. It can do 4K up to 30 frames per second. And here's a quick sample from the front-facing camera of the Galaxy S6 Active. This one can do video at 1440p or 1080p. So there you guys have it, just a quick look at the Galaxy S6 Active in 2021. So of course it is, you know, old by today's standards. It's now 6 years old, running a pretty outdated processor, running an outdated version of Android, but as you can see, it still runs modern apps. You can still use this as a backup phone or something like that. The one thing that sucks is that they don't sell these active versions anymore. The only ones that they sell like this are kind of mid-range budget phones that are made ruggedized, but they don't do the flagship rugged phones anymore, which is kind of unfortunate because I know you guys in my audience have seen my videos on this phone and the S7 Active, and you've expressed that you want another phone like this. So hopefully, you know, maybe one day a company will actually decide to make a flagship rugged phone again. I think what really hurt this phone and the S7 Active is that they were AT&T exclusives. Had they had this on the other carriers, they may have continued to make this, I feel like, because, you know, like, a rugged phone is nice to have, especially if you have a job that requires it. I know some people that, you know, have jobs that they do that are tough on their phones, and they have to have OtterBoxes or these ugly cases to protect their very fragile phones. But it would be nice to have a ruggedized phone like this again with flagship specs. I really think that that is something that they should definitely make again. But unfortunately, if you want something new and rugged, you're gonna have to go for one of those budget or mid-range devices, unfortunately, unless you want to buy a flagship and put it in an ugly case. So that's the only thing that stinks about, you know, the phones today. But I still really like this phone, and it's really impressive that it still has, you know, capability to run new apps. I also got Nearby Share, which is a Android feature that was enabled last year, so you can share pictures and videos to anybody that has Nearby Share, and it works with phones Android 6 and up, so pretty cool that this got this. Anyway guys, just a quick look at the Galaxy S6 Active in 2021. If you guys have any questions or comments on this phone, feel free to leave them down below, and if you like this video, hit that like button. If you want to see more like this, consider subscribing. I'll see you guys in the next one.